Hi, I'm Meg Faure. Welcome to the Checkers Baby Vlog. This week we're going to be talking about toddlers, and specifically toddlers' behavior and toddler tantrums, and how to actually deal with this. Now, we all live with toddlers in the home and we all know just how disorganizing it can be. Your toddler is maybe upending the dog's water bowl in the lounge, or maybe refusing to eat any more mouthfuls, or maybe calling you back to the bedroom time after time in the evening when you want to go and watch your favorite TV show. Or they might be throwing a temper tantrum in your local Checkers down the aisles. So whatever it is, toddler behavior can be very frustrating. And so I'm going to look at 3 very simple tips for you to manage your baby's or your toddler's behavior in a much more constructive way. And the first thing that I do want to say before we start to talk about toddler behavior is that toddlerhood is a time in which your little one has to flex their muscles. They are developing their personality. Erickson says it was the stage where babies and toddlers are developing autonomy versus doubt. So either they're going to be autonomous, strong little characters, which is why they're pushing the boundaries, or they might doubt themselves if you crush their spirits. So while it's very important to make sure you're getting the discipline right, it's also important not to crush their spirit. So we're going to have a look at these 3 strategies to make sure that you can improve your toddler's behavior. And the first one revolves around just knowing when to actually draw the line. And so for this one, I talk about pick your battles. And for picking your battles, you need to ask yourself these 3 questions. The first question is my toddler going to hurt themselves? Because if your baby or toddler is hurting themselves, then obviously you've got to prevent them from doing that. And an example of a toddler hurting themselves is when your toddler refuses to wear his water wings or his armbands when it's time for a swim. Well, of course he has to do that because otherwise he's going to injure himself. So that's a boundary that needs to be enforced. The second question you need to ask is he hurting somebody else? And so this would be the case where your toddler's a biter, decides to bite his little friends. And obviously biting and hitting are things that are not acceptable behavior. They hurt another person. And so if your toddler's hurting someone else, you need to draw the boundary around that. And the third thing is he being kind? So is your toddler being kind in what he's doing? And so if your toddler's being very balshy and angry and really looks like he's going to either hurt somebody, hurt himself, or being very unkind, that's when you do need to draw the boundary. And so what I always say to parents with this very first step is don't fight every battle. If the toddler isn't doing something that hurts himself, hurts someone else, or being unkind, then rather just let it go. Like for instance, the toddler who wants to wear his pajama pants to school every day. Is he hurting himself? Not really. Is he hurting someone else? Definitely not. Is he being unkind? No. So I wouldn't pick that battle because you're going to lose. If you pick every single battle and you choose to fight every single battle and draw boundaries around everything that your toddler does, you're going to find that you lose. So rather pick the battles that you know that you can win. So that's tip number 1. Pick your battles with your toddler. Tip number 2 is how to address a behavior in the moment. And what often happens is that your toddler is insisting on, let's say, having a cookie before supper time. And you say no, and you know exactly why. It's because you want your toddler to eat his supper well. But for your toddler, he throws himself backwards, starts hitting his head on the floor. So how do you cope with that? Well, with almost every single tantrum or almost every single battle that you're going to have with your toddler, I like to talk about the ABC approach. So here's the ABCs of toddler discipline. The A stands for acknowledge what your toddler wants. So let your toddler know that you understand what he wants. One of the big reasons that toddlers fight parents is that they're not terribly sure if you actually know what they mean. Because, of course, toddlers are at a stage where they understand more than they can express. So he hasn't been able to express himself fully, and he's not sure if you understand what he actually wants. So the first thing is to acknowledge what your toddler wants. And you do that by saying, I know that you want. And then you tell him. So I know that you want another apple before bedtime. Or I know that you want a packet of sweeties as we're leaving the Checkers aisle. So you talk around what you know that your toddler wants so that he understands. And for this one, I recommend getting down on his level, making eye contact with him, and making sure that he really understands that you know what he wants. So that's your A, acknowledge what your toddler wants. Your B is very important. This is the part that makes your toddler feel secure. It's the boundary. We need to have firm boundaries which make our toddlers feel secure. We know that toddlers who don't have boundaries feel insecure and actually end up with more doubt than toddlers who have got good boundaries. So create your boundaries, know your limits. So if the boundary is that he may not have that packet of sweets as you are exiting the Checkers because it's just before supper time, or if it's that you're not going to go in and read a fourth story to a toddler in the middle of the night or at bedtime, you draw that boundary and you say, I know that you want another story, but we're not doing another story tonight. Mommy and Daddy are going to have time together, so that he really knows that you understand him and there's a boundary. And then the third step is you're going to give him a choice. And that choice is between two things. It's a choice between something you can live with and something he can't live with. Okay? So you give him a choice that none of it's ideal for him. He wanted another story before bedtime. So the choices you could give him is, okay, I'll tell you what, Mommy's not going to read you another story, but Mommy will sit with you until you're asleep. That's option one. Option two is Mommy goes out the room and closes the door. Let's say, for instance, that's what you've decided you want to do. So there you've given your toddler a choice that absolutely one he can't live with, which is you going out the room, and the other one is you just sitting there, which is actually what he wanted anyway. So what you've done now is you've created a boundary that you can live with. You can sit there. And then for that bedtime battles, you actually start to stage that out each night. So I'll sit there for half an hour, then for 15 minutes, and then I'll come back. And so you start to negotiate it as the nights go on. The case in point of your toddler who keeps upending the dog's water all over your carpet, you acknowledge, I know that you love to play with water. The boundary is you can't empty the dog's water on the carpet because this is a special carpet. It's Mommy's special carpet, okay? Something that's been damaged by your toddler's behavior. So you give your toddler the choice. You can upend the dog water's bottle outside, or you can go to the naughty corner if you have a naughty corner. So you create choices, one that your toddler can actually live with and one that they absolutely can't live with. And so that's your ABCs. So our step number one is pick your battles. Your step number two is have the ABCs. Acknowledge, boundary, choice in everything. And the final step of managing your toddler are the 3 C's. Be absolutely consistent. Never shift on something. If you're going to draw a boundary, don't make it grey. Make sure that your toddler knows that that's the boundary. Be consistent. The second C is to collaborate. And this is collaboration between you and your partner. You guys need to be on the same page, because if you're not on the same page, your toddler's going to play you. Toddlers are very, very clever. They know exactly how to play their parents. So make sure you're collaborating and you're in agreement on what you're going to draw the boundaries on. And the third step is calm. So discipline your child when you're very, very calm. Make sure that your toddler understands that you know what they want, that you've given them a boundary, you've given them a choice, and do it very calmly. Don't get angry. So be totally consistent, never giving a grey area. Collaborate with your partner and be absolutely calm as you implement discipline. Those are the 3 C's of discipline. So there we go. We've got it in a nutshell. We've looked a little bit at how to put discipline in place for your toddler. Remember that toddlers need boundaries. They don't need a free-for-all. They need boundaries. That's how they feel secure. That's how they develop autonomy. And that's how you avoid them developing doubt. So good luck with your toddlers. It's a precious time. It's an exhausting time. And it's a time in which you instill self-esteem for life. So do it carefully. All the best. See you next week.